uh, whatever you guys want. If they want to vote on the movie, or what I'll do is I can bring, like last time, did I bring the Apple TV, or how did we watch it last time? Was it on Netflix or something that we watched?
I think you brought the Apple TV.
Okay, so I can bring my Apple TV, and Sean has about 500 movies on there, so we can, and he usually, there's some even Barbie movies on there for his little girls, but there's some good movies on there, so you can pick from that, or if you guys are like, hey, let's do this movie, and if it's not on there, I'll buy it, because I think they're $10 or something, $15. So I'll buy it so that we have it, and then that way we can pause it whenever we need and all that good stuff. So whatever you guys think. If you want to take the next couple.
Could you give us like a list, like 6 or 7 movies, and we can just vote from that?
Oh, I can do that if that'd be easier. Yeah, so let me do that. What I'll do is I'll make up a list of, let's say, a dozen movies, and then, no, let's make it 10. I'll make up a list of 10 movies, and then what you should do is vote your top 3. And then that way, and then the winner, the one that has the most votes, and then hopefully, there'll be some overlap, right? Hopefully it's not just one person that wants to watch Full Metal Jacket and everybody else wants to watch Pretty Woman or whatever. Yeah. So, but just to give you guys an idea, I'll talk to you some things to just the way that we discuss movies is the way that I want you guys to start to look at movies. And it may not even be things, which obviously Megan's like, I never watch a movie the same after watching, like, what was the one we did? In Bruges. We did In Bruges, which is a very well acted movie, and it's pretty well made, especially for a first time filmmaker. What's his name? Martin McDonagh, who did The Pillow Man, and he's a playwright. That was his first screenplay. And he did Seven Psychopaths, or his movie Seven Psychopaths. What's his other movie? He just had another one come out recently. It was just like recently. I can't remember. Anyhow, so you guys can really start to watch movies. So the movie that we did was A Quiet Place. Has everybody seen A Quiet Place? Okay. You've seen it?
Is A Quiet Place where
They can't talk.
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay. This is not anything to give away the... are you guys opposed to 0 spoiler alerts for that movie? Or do you want me to just tell you a little bit, something that we... Oh, anybody? It's not... this is, by the way, not at the end of the film, what I'm going to talk to you about. So early on in the film, right? And, it's kind of a thing, maybe 5-7 minutes into the film, the wife... thank you. So she's walking up the stairs, right? And those of you that seen it, right, like her dress snags the nail in the, right? So we're talking about the film, right, as we're really analyzing it. And Sean's like, here's my one problem with the film. He's like, it's a solid film all the way throughout. But that was his critique of the film. He goes, for people that have had to live now for, at that particular time, a month and a half, live a certain way, they have to be so specific about the way they live their life. He was like it was untruthful to their characters, that she wouldn't have, like, she snagged her dress on a nail, that she would have checked to make sure, because nothing can be different. Like, if you even know that even before that point, 4 minutes in the movie, you can even see where they've painted on the wood panels so they know where to step stuff. So everything that's so specific in a movie. And so he's like, that's my biggest problem with the movie, because it's not consistent with their characters. And I'm like, okay, I don't know I had never seen the movie, and I was like, okay, I'm listening to him. His thing was, he's like, it should have been perhaps one of the kids to do that, because the kid wouldn't necessarily go back and check to see if this nail got pulled up in the thing. And as we're discussing it, or we get done and we're having this discussion, he's like, do you think that nail was even necessary? Because it's still not towards the end, but when she actually steps on the nail, she was actually in labor. Did you guys see it? Those of you saw it. She was actually in labor when she stepped on the nail, right? And he's like, was that even necessary? And so I'm thinking, I was like, was it even necessary? Because it was just, if she had stepped on the nail at another time and couldn't scream, then it would have been another like plot device to show us that how quiet they have to be. But she was in the middle of labor trying to keep silent, and they also have her step on a nail. And it almost seemed like overkill. And then, we're done and we're having this discussion, and I was like, and all of a sudden it just came to me. It's like, it was absolutely necessary. He's right about the thing that perhaps it should have been one of the kids to pull up the nail as opposed to the adult because it wasn't consistent with their character. But I was like, it was very much necessary, in my opinion, very much necessary to have her step on that nail, even though she was right smack dab in the middle of labor, because we were having this discussion that labor is like 10 times more painful than stepping on a 2-inch nail or whatever it is, an 1.5 inch nail. But half of your audience has never went through labor. So here's the thing. While everybody that's ever seen a movie and a woman goes into labor, we almost dismiss the amount of pain that it is. And then all of a sudden you see somebody actually step on a nail that goes straight up through the middle of their foot. Almost everybody can relate to that. And I was like, it's almost necessary that needs to be there. Otherwise, half the audience doesn't realize how difficult it is to remain silent when you're in pain, in labor. And so you'll start to watch movies in such a way that you won't dismiss little things. I'm not saying that you dismiss it, but you'll see, like the way that you guys have heard me talk about even script analysis, right? Nothing is arbitrary. If it doesn't need to be in the film, it won't be there. It won't be there. On well-made films, I should say. There's a bunch of shit in a bunch of shitty films. But well-made film, it's there for a reason. It's there for a reason. And you'll start to really see stuff like that when we do film analysis. So I'll send out a list of 10 movies. I'll send it to Charles or McKenna or whoever that can put it on the thing. And then you guys can vote on the top 3 that you want to watch. So, before we get cracking, and then I will tell you guys, if you want to or just listen to something funny, I usually give you guys something educational to listen to, but there's a new podcast. It's 10, 15, 20 episodes in with Conan O'Brien. It's called Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, and it's a free podcast. And he's had on like Dana Carvey and, a few people, but he just recently had on Timothy Oliphant. And they're actually real good friends in real life, and it is so goddamn funny. I've never laughed out loud listening to a podcast, and I must have laughed out loud 3 times. So if you just want to have a little chuckle, and they're short. I mean, I think the guests are actually only on his thing for 30 to 45 minutes. They're not even an hour. And then I know this week Daniel Radcliffe is going to be on Sam Jones. And Daniel Radcliffe, I've already listened to a couple of his clips on YouTube, and I already know that that's going to be a good one because the 3 that I've listened to, they're top notch. So, and he's been famous essentially since he was, how old when he started Harry Potter? Maybe 8 or something. So he's essentially been famous as long as he can remember. Because I know we have some memories before we're 8, but most of the time our memories are images. They're not really vivid memories the way that they are, like you can remember yesterday or whatever. So that would be a good one to listen to. And I think that's it. Anybody else need to say anything before we get cracking?
I watched Arabia. Just a great film.
Charles has probably seen that. He's given me some shit about he only watches classics. Have you seen Lawrence of Arabia?
I've seen parts of it.
Yeah, Peter O'Toole.
I know the famous.
He has an old school rotted train girl, Peter O'Toole.
Yeah.
Man, he has moments in it, dude, and he just fucking blows you out of the water. The kids just like that. That was bad.
Yeah, that was one of the, I think like the first movies that was like very, Cecil B. DeMille did some that were quite epic, but that was like one of those really epic, sweeping cinematography was like, I think they probably won Academy Awards for cinematography and everything, so.
It's so beautifully shot.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna go against popular opinion with this, but I
Good.
watched Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh,
Hate it.
Okay. I watched it as well. I haven't commented on it, right?
No.
Yeah.
I thought it was so boring.
I watched it as well, and I told Sean, because we were talking about it before we actually started, he goes, "You want to watch that?" I'm like, "No, I just watched it." He goes, "What'd you think?" I'm like, "Look, Rami Malek, he's a good actor, man. He really is." But I was like, his teeth did the acting.
Yes.
His teeth did the acting. He didn't really do a whole lot. So I'm not saying it's some bad performance or anything like that. Do I think it's worthy of the accolades that he's getting? No, because it's one of these things I always remembered that I was watching an actor. I never thought I was watching Freddie Mercury. And it was one of these things that we talked about. It's like, I think his teeth were too big.
Yeah.
It was distracting. And if you're doing, it may be this thing that it may be anatomically correct, but if you're doing anything as a filmmaker that's distracting, that pulls the audience out of the story, it's one of those things. That's why, as I've talked to you guys before, and I was just having a discussion with another actor who's not in this class anymore, and he goes to another teacher, and apparently he was telling me that he says, we didn't get into an argument, but we were having a discussion about it, because he says, I feel more the way you do. And I was like, well, the only reason you feel the way that I do is probably because I got you before him and was able to brainwash you. But the way that I feel about really doing sex on screen, his teacher now felt like, no, having sex on screen is still acting. And well, hold on a second. So I was like, as I've even told you guys, I said, those of you that have been with me long enough that you've heard me talk about either doing full nudity on screen or doing sex not simulated, like really having sex on screen, whatever it is, you're in charge of your art. I'm not here to tell you what you should or should not do. You're the artist. It's up to you. But I would highly discourage doing them, because here's the thing. Every time that you see, like, it's one of these things, I'll use Shia LaBeouf's movie, Nymphomaniac. I'll use that as an example, right? So in that movie, it appears as if he's really having sex on screen, even though we know that they hired porn actors to fill in the actual real sex and whatever. But all of a sudden, I'm watching this movie and I'm 100% into it. Then all of a sudden, they're really having sex, and all of a sudden, I'm not even in the story anymore. I'm going, is Shia LaBeouf having sex on screen? So now I'm not in the story anymore. And it's partly because of our, maybe they don't feel that way in France because they have sex on screen a lot over there, or there's a lot of full frontal nudity. But in America, it's not something that's run of the mill. And so the minute you see it, you're almost like, wait a minute, well, I know that there's all kinds of websites, especially, females have tended to get naked on full frontal nude on screen more often than men do. But it's one of these things. Just picture every time you've seen full frontal of a man on the screen, you're almost like, holy shit, did he just... And then all of a sudden I'm not in the story anymore. Because I'm like, did they really just fucking show us his dick? And so I'm not prude in the sense that I'm like, oh, I can't see nudity on screen. It's just I was raised in a way that it's jarring, and now all of a sudden I'm not in the story anymore. And if a filmmaker pulls me, if there's anything that happens that now I'm not in the story, that's bad filmmaking in my opinion. And go ahead.
No, I mean, for me it's tough. Like, we're watching foreign films.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, for me, if the acting's done well and the story's solid enough, I feel like there's ways where it can be done, and it can still like movies I love, I love the comedian. It was The Warmest Colors, another.
Okay, I've never seen that one, but okay.
But it's really like sexually aggressive.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's so well acted throughout the film that person, it's probably different for everybody else.
Yeah, that's why it's like it's just a personal thing. That's why I always say, you're in charge of your art. If you're okay being full frontal nudity and all this stuff, but it's also one of these things that I will remind you, especially, back in the day when I was growing up, the only thing that there was VHS, right? And that was not till I was like 10. Before that, it was just reel to reel, right? It wasn't till I was about 10 that there was VHS. And then here's what we did as kids. Hey, have you seen Blue Thunder? There's a naked woman in it. And we had to go get it and stop it and pause it, right? Well, now there's the fucking internet. So anytime you want to take your clothes off, it is there at, I can pull it up right now in 3 seconds and see your junk. The royal you. And so it's one of these things. I mean, there are websites dedicated to, well, it used to be when you could stop a movie to see the thing. Now they just have the still shot because there's the internet. And so I never want you guys to be known for, because you take your clothes off. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's okay that if you justify it. It goes from a drama to a horror film, just like that. Nobody wants to see me naked. So you're in charge of your art. If you want to take your clothes off, be my guest. But it's one of these things too that I say, if you're really, because what I think our job as actors is to find the emotional truth of the situation, right? Because in real life, our lives aren't lived in 2-hour blocks. Movies are. And so we're trying to find some emotional truth that's a journey and a through line and all this stuff that we do, but it's an emotional truth, not necessarily real. Go ahead.
I think it also depends on the purpose of the movie, because Jennifer Lawrence was in an interview talking about, because she did her first nude scene in Mother.
Oh, okay.
It was not sexual. It was very she was being beat up. Her clothes being
Oh, yeah.
You see her tits.
Oh.
And she was saying
See, now here's just real quick, not to interrupt you, but I did watch it and I don't even recall that. Yeah, so it was probably well done.
That's why she was saying she was okay with being nude in that scene because it represented her being so she was vulnerable and she was getting the shit beat out of her.
I don't want it to be a hard and fast rule that I'm trying to preach to you guys. If you're in charge of your art, if you want to take your clothes off, do whatever if you trust the filmmaker. Look, it's very much, look, Julianne Moore is an excellent actress, but there's probably a half a dozen movies where she's full frontal nude. But people don't go, oh, she's the actress that gets nude, because she does good work and there's times where she doesn't. So you got to be your own judge. I'm not here to say do it or don't do it. You're in charge of your art. But I would tell you, don't just do it because you're like, oh, the filmmaker wants it and blah blah. You know what I mean? It's you got to be in charge of that. But what I always come back to is, if you really have to have sex on screen in order for me to believe that you're really having sex, does that also mean that when you're playing a bank robber, you have to bring in a real gun? Because guess what? If you're really bringing in a real gun and I'm the hostage, do I really even have to act? No, you got a real fucking gun. So if it's this thing that I've got to make you believe that I'm having sex, and so then I result to having sex, am I really acting anymore is what I always come down to. And it's this thing where we say, well, we're not really in love or whatever. And I'm always like, I think you should play it the opposite. It's one of these things, how come we remember love scenes from Titanic or whatever, but you can't name me the last pornographic scene you saw? Because those people aren't finding any emotional truth. It's just the physical reality. And so, right? I mean, I can't tell you the last porn that I watched that the people were in love, that I felt any sort of emotional connection to any of them. And so, go ahead, what do you say?
Also, I feel like for women, especially, like especially newer actresses, women or actors, I'll just call them actors.
Yeah.
man, I feel like it kind of degrades them. Like if you think about Halle Berry, she waited for so long before she finally showed her boobs.
And then everybody talked about it.
Right, and then they had to pay her a shitload of money to do it.
Yeah.
And she got was it the one with Billy Bob Thornton? I know she did it in Swordfish.
Yeah, Swordfish was the first. Yeah, but Swordfish was the first one that she took her top off.
Right. And they paid her so much for both of those films.
Yeah.
And she won the Oscar
Yeah.
when the Billy Bob Thornton
Right.
won. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And she was this great actress that everyone knew. And I feel like as a woman, I got a little girl, so I feel like it's better for. I think that women should always not show their breasts if possible, and then demand the most. Like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna show a full frontal, then demand the most. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And hold off as long as you can.
I look, the money thing, if you want to hold out for money, that's up to you as an artist. Whatever you want to do. I would not, my personal thing, I wouldn't let even money determine whether or not that I take my clothes off, because actually I don't think she made a whole lot of money for
She got like $2 million or a few million
for
one of whichever one
yeah.
showed her the boobs.
Yeah, that's the Swordfish, because that was a studio film. You know, the Monsters Ball was more of a indie film, so she didn't make very much for that. But I just want you to deter. I want you guys to just be your own judge, be discerning, and if you think that it's pertinent to the film, or like it's what's the word? It's not gratuitous, right?
Right.
And you want to do it, be my guest. But just really, forever, like Chloe Sevigny is a pretty good actor, and she'll forever be known as the girl that gave head to her boyfriend on film in Brown Bunny.
Right, I heard about that. Yeah.
You've heard about it.
Yeah, I heard about it.
See, here's the thing. Like, you almost can't even picture her face, but I have heard that she fucking gave her boyfriend head on a movie. And so, because he was the director, shame on you for doing that for him. I don't think you should have done that. But no, definitely not. I bet you they were broken up before the movie even came out.
They're immortalized together for that scene.
Yeah. So, be the judge of your own art, but it's this really thing. If you really have to do it, and I know that so much like we talk about it sounds almost contradictory, because Sanford Meisner said, the foundation of acting is in the reality of doing, right? And yeah, so we're really doing things, but what he meant by that is that you're not up there acting something, right? What I mean is, like, if you're going to work on a car engine, really work on it. Don't be like, the thing that I talk about even in the movie, right? The reason we do those of you that have been around long enough that we do the one actions, which one actions are the ones that, if you guys have been around long enough, where we sneak into the other person's house, right? And you can't make a noise. Well, you realize you can't do a movie sneak. It's too fucking loud. So there's a certain fundamental with the reality of doing, but all I would do is caution you. That's what I'll say. I'll caution you to really having sex on screen. If you want to do it, you're in charge of your art. And just to give you an idea, if you don't think that it will stay with you, I've told you guys this before, and this is not a knock against her, because it was almost like, to me, inconsequential, but Robin Cohen did a movie with Jeff Goldblum, Steve Zissou, what's the guy's? Wes Anderson, right? Wes Anderson, and she has her top off in it, right? And so I even read you guys an article that had nothing to do with acting. She was involved with a lawsuit suing the owner of her apartment building because it burnt down and it wasn't up to code. And it says, Robin Cohen, actress, best known for appearing topless in Wes Anderson's Steve Zissou, The Life of... That's how she's now labeled. And that's like one tiny movie in a 25 years of work. And that's how she's even described in a fucking thing that's not even about acting. Yeah. So that's why I would caution you guys, like, make sure that if you do it, that you're okay with it. That's all I'm saying. And if you're okay with it, I'm okay with it. But just, that's my caution. So,
would you do topless?
I definitely would do topless as long as they provided me with a brassiere. Because I got my titties. I got to get back to the gym, man. I got to get back to the gym. Good Lord. Okay, so anybody else need to say anything else? So that's it. So if you want to get naked on screen because you're like, oh, it's totally in the like makes sense in the film, be my guest. You know what I mean? Look, it makes sense in I mean, one of my favorite movies is I just talked about it. No, with the bowling ball with the Big Lebowski. Big Lebowski, right? Julianne Moore, I mean, it's far away. It's this shot that's way far away, so you almost can't really see it. It's almost silhouette, but you can see she's 100% full frontal nude in that. But her character is 100% about being sexual. There's a certain artistic thing for her being so free with her body because that's her character. But if, you know, and I guarantee you that if it wasn't the Coen brothers coming to her and saying, hey, you know, she was probably the one who probably said, I think it makes sense for me to be 100% nude. They don't even strike me as somebody who even said, we need you 100% nude. It was probably her choice, especially because of the way it's even shot. It was already shot so far away that they probably already knew that even if she decided not to be 100% naked, we could probably make it feel like she was. Because the shot is way down that hall. And so the way she strikes me, she probably was like, I'm just going to take my robe off. And they were probably like, all right. So just make sure it makes sense to you in your artistic thing, whatever you, don't just be like, oh man, agreed to, you're struggling for a couple years and all of a sudden a filmmaker says, I want you to do this little part in my movie. And you're like, sweet, I get to act with actor X. And he's like, yeah, but I need you to be fully nude, 100% nude. And you're like, yeah, but it's a big part and everything like that. Just think about it. Don't be so quick to go, okay, because it may be the only thing you ever do, and that's what you'll be known for. They won't go, did you see her amazing acting ability? They're going to go, you see her amazing tits? It's just it's just our society. I'm sorry. I mean, I wish it wasn't that way. How nice would it be that we could do that? But it's just this, I was raised in a Lutheran household that was very shameful. You did not. Except I do remember being a little boy and my mom walking around the house naked, but there was no other, it was just me and her in the house. I was probably like 6. But maybe that's why I like such Oedipus Rex. Never mind. Sorry. Anyways, that's just a little joke. So, cool. Yeah. Remember when I was a little boy and my mom used to walk around? So, it was the 70s, man. It was a free time, man. Free love. Vietnam War was just ended. And anyways. Okay, so let's find out what everybody's doing. So, Jared. Oh, is there anything else that we need to talk about? No? Okay. Jared. What do you got? You and Charles? No. Okay.
No, we're with you. When you come back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Liberty's. I think he said he told me his plane arrived at like 8:30 tonight, so he's definitely not going to be here.
So, Ricky and Tilda, we're going to do an exercise kind of based off of you from the bridge.
Okay. Okay. Got it. And then Lee?
I got a scene with Paul.
Okay, yeah, cool. Okay. Paul and Lee and Megan. And, we can't be watching it tonight, but don't forget Charles' show's on tonight, so hopefully y'all DVR'd it, or he said, did you say your friends recording it?
He's recording.
Okay, so Charles tonight, he's a top of the show guest star on NCIS, where he plays the young, what's the guy's name? Tim McGee. Tim McGee is the character's name. What's the actor's name? I forget. Yeah. Anyways, the actor, though, that he's grown up now, but if anybody has ever seen Hocus Pocus, he was the boy that was dead. Like, he comes back as the Thackeray. Yeah, Thackeray Binks. Yeah, it's him as, he's the adult now in the show. And so Charles is playing the younger version of him. So if you want to look up young Thackeray Binks, that's what his name was, right? Thackeray Binks? Oh, I thought it was Thackeray.
It is
It's Thackeray, right? Yeah. See. Nice. Sean Murray's the actor. Cool. So I love that movie when Bette Midler's doing "I Put a Spell on You." That's my favorite part of that whole movie. Oh, I love that part.
I love that song.
Yeah, it's good, but and then Kathy Najimy's so. Once again, you'll start to watch movies, and you'll watch them in such a way that you'll see somebody who's not quite discovered yet. I mean, like they're discovered within Hollywood, meaning like they got a big part in the movie, but you may not know their name yet or anything, and you'll watch them and you'll just be like, holy crap, that person's good. And because Sean brought it up during watching A Quiet Place, he's like, hey, wasn't Emily Blunt a singer or something? I was like, I don't know that, but I know the first time that I ever saw her was in Devil Wears Prada. And I was like, I don't know who I'd never even heard of her. And I'm like, she's blowing Anne Hathaway off the screen. I was like, she's going to be famous. And of course, she went on to be Emily Blunt, and now she's Mary Poppins and everything. So, I mean, it's stuff, that kind of stuff just smacks you across the face. And that's kind of why those of you that have worked with me with any sort of major audition or whatever that you have, I don't stop until it's like really good, because it's not good enough to just be real when you're an unknown. It's like, it's almost thinking this terms, like you gotta be so, I don't want to use the word good, but it's almost like you're reaching through the screen and going, you have to cast me. You know what I mean? You've got to be so like undeniably good. If, you know what I mean? Like, do these things. I mean, this is just to talk about, just because he did got the part, but it was one of these things that when Lee and I worked on The Mule, I was literally like, now the thing that I gave him to do was not on the page, was it, Lee? It was not on the page. And I said, I guarantee you, if you do this in the room, and I said, I can't make you do it, right? Because, it could be quite scary to go in there and take a risk on a Clint Eastwood movie like this. But I said, if you do this in the room, guarantee you book the movie. Of all of the bad guys, he's the only one that didn't even have to do callbacks. They booked him after his initial audition.
And you know what's crazy? Even when I went in and I did it, so I spent so long with the initial being quiet.
Yeah.
And taking in being out in this forest and,
Yeah.
and all these trees. And so when I did my first line, it's quiet out here, and then I yelled like that, it scared the shit out of both of the casting directors. One of them jumped back, almost dropped the camera. The other one, she started crying, and it was crazy. And then I added my own little Spanish and stuff to it that wasn't in the script, and they ended up keeping that for the movie for the guy who.
The lines that he added, because he didn't get the part, they gave him another part. And the guy that actually got the part, he's an older actor. He's older than Lee, is what I mean. And they used the lines that he used in his audition. They gave them to him in the film.
In the film, yeah.
The other actor.
Lobo Sebastian,
Yeah.
The guy from,
So it's one of these things that's why when I work with you guys, right, I'm like, it's got to be this thing that it's like you're reaching through the camera and it's a demand that you have to hire me. It's not just, being good is not enough when you're an unknown.
And then I turned down all the other roles, being an unknown. They wanted me to audition for 4 roles.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So when I told them, they were like,
What are
what
you
role
gonna
are you
do?
going to do next? What are you going to read for next? And I was like, with all due respect, and I told Matt, I really wanted this one. Matt was like, just go out there. I was like, I don't really want to read these other ones. We'll prepare. But
Oh,
I
that's
don't
right.
want to read for him. And he was like, that's a ballsy ass.
You and
thing.
Megan, too?
And when I said that to the casting people, they were like, they started looking at they had one what Matt had. Wait, who are you again? And what have you done? Literally, have you done? I've done all kinds of shit that nothing big. And they couldn't fucking believe it, but they respected it. You just gotta be, you gotta be strong. You gotta be confident.
So, and then the last thing I'll say before anybody goes out. So, you can go on iTunes now and download Kate's newest song. Came out today. It's called. Well, we've talked about Ricky's things before, but yeah, Ricky's are on there too. And then you can listen to Apple. Like if you like rap music, I hate rap music, man. No, that's not true. That's not true. But Lee Cox got a bunch of songs on, because he's been doing it for a long, long time. But he's got tons of songs on, whatever, Apple and all that stuff. So, but Ricky, that's your first single though. That's Boshi's first single. So you can go on. I downloaded it today and listened to it, and it's so goddamn suffocating.
I didn't.
Touche. Okay, so let's get cracking so we can get done and get out of here. So so we're waiting for Tilda. So does anybody need to go out and talk right now? Anybody need to go talk? Okay, you do. Wait a minute. I don't. Oh yeah, I don't have you, Miguel. What do you got?
I'm working with Charles, and then I'm just set up with Jared.
This Jared? That Jared? Okay. So you guys need to go talk. Right. Go ahead and go talk, and then you go talk, and then who wants to go first? Anybody want to go first? So you got Lee and what are you guys doing?
We gonna do motherfucker shit.
Okay, and then Lee and Paul, and that's motherfucker too. Oh man, it's all these motherfuckers with the hats.
I can play Ralphie now, I feel like.
Yeah,
So there's Dorothy came to watch. So hey Dorothy. So you guys don't need but you don't have anybody, right? So do you want to? Who'd you work with last week? Remind me. With Andrew. Okay. So why don't we do? You want? Yeah, you want to jump in with them and then maybe even do another one because I don't have very many people tonight. So you want to jump in with them or not? If you don't want to. Okay. So why don't you? Is there somebody else that you want to work with too? With Charles. Okay. So because Charles only has one thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't you go set up with them too, and then go with Charles too, and then
Just me and Lucy? Just you and I.
Well, to make sure that we don't. Make sure that Jared doesn't murder Charles tonight.
Where did Jared go? Jared, wait, I'm not here. Reed, Reed,
Hey, you're
Ralph, right? Ralphie? Yeah, I got a copy at home. You mean you want to read it to